Welcome to the Purpose for Life podcast. I'm Suzanne Roberts, your host, author of It's Deeper Than That, and founder of The Great Reconnection. I'm so excited to have here with us today Dr. Sierra Austin. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Suzanne.
I'm so excited for our listeners to get to hear you speak today, to learn from you, to experience you, to have their minds and hearts and spirits expanded into new possibilities. And I'm just really grateful you're here.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Honored to be here.
Sarah, I'd like to talk a little bit about your journey of how you've gotten to where you are now. And I just learned some really exciting new research that you're doing that we're going to get into. Take us on a journey of, you being the first member of your family to actually finish college and go on then and get a PhD, and the evolution of your growth in leadership to where you are now. And then we can get into your research, what's piqued your interest in your research.
Absolutely. So like you mentioned, in my immediate family, I am the first to graduate from undergrad, obtain a master's and a doctorate. Most of that study has been in women's gender and sexuality studies, and African American and African studies. So academically, personally, spiritually, I've always been interested in finding words, right, to explain, analyze, or understand the experiences of Black folks and Black women in particular. And so those are the fields that have, gotten me there. And so I think at this point, I've known you for like a little over 10 years now,
I
which
think
is
it's
crazy.
12.
12, yeah.
I think
Little,
so.
yeah. And so at that time, I was in the nonprofit space doing social justice based work, which is also kind of a theme in my trajectory, right? So lots of teaching, lots of research, and lots of um, work that deals with social justice and equity. Um, and so I think when you and I met, I was going through a really tough time trying to figure out my kind of space as where I needed to be as a professional, as a scholar, what type of interventions I wanted to make, and how I would navigate those, like as a young Black woman. And
Mm-hmm.
so you were one of the people that kind of helped me figure that out and to navigate that and to more unapologetically really understand and live out my purpose and my values. And a lot of that was through practices related to, polarity and holistic wellness, and again, social justice. And so from that time, 12 years ago, I feel like I've been very intentional about this growth process. And a lot has happened in that 12 years, right? So
Yes.
I ended up getting the PhD that I was working toward when we met. I've had, tons of teaching appointments at, various colleges and universities since we've met. I've published things.
Mhm.
But personally, I've had children, I've gotten married, I've experienced some of the happiest times of my life and some of the most soul crushing moments of my life,
Mm.
right? Related to illness and death. And I think that, this is the work that keeps me grounded. It keeps me spiritually and intellectually fed. And I know that it's not ever done in a good way, right? But there's always room for theoretical evolution, for personal evolution. And it's something that, will always be timely and always be valuable.
When you say this work, what is it that you're saying this work is?
Yeah, so for me, this work is an investment in my own life. It's an investment in my own career. And when I say this work, I mean wellness. I mean a wellness that intersects with social justice and social change. And so, I mean polarity practices, I mean social justice based teaching practices and research that get people to honor what's living in them and to understand that the liberation and wellness that we seek, we have to build and maintain from within. Like, we're not going to probably see the types of liberation that we dream of perhaps in our lifetimes, and that we certainly shouldn't solely look for it on the outside, right? But that we have to develop it and continue to develop it internally in order to thrive.
So, if I'm hearing you well, I'm hearing that when you say this work, that you say you're turning your attention inward to find ways to find liberation in yourself through your understanding of the kind of experiences Black women have had
Hmm.
and ways, and I know that you have a lot of statistics around things that health wise that impact Black women, and then making sure that you're not another statistic.
Hmm.
And that that's part of your social justice action is to make sure that you're internally liberated rather than just trying to force it externally. Am I hearing you well?
You are hearing me perfectly.
Okay. And would you talk? I was really fascinated because I actually haven't ever really heard you say this before, that you were trying to find words to explain the Black experience and especially the Black woman experience. And
Hmm.
will you talk about why that's so important to you?
Yeah, I think about the women who are the closest to me, and those tend to be elders, mostly family members or women that are closely tied to my family, who, like we shared, didn't have access to formal education, right? And so while we can't have a ton of intellectual conversations about systems and structures and, white supremacy, um, they are like the first models of, Black feminism and social justice warriors that I know, right? They
Hmm.
can make analyses about their relationship to these systems, right? They understand very well the ways in which they have been oppressed or exploited or been
Mm.
harmed by systems and structures, but they don't necessarily have a bunch of like academic language in which to articulate that. And so I think part of my work and legacy is to be able to bridge that
Hmm.
gap from folks who haven't had access to formal education, to the ivory tower, right? How do we talk about wellness and critical spiritualities, right? Centering ourselves, thinking about what happens at the intersection of our spirituality and social justice, right? Thinking about and dreaming about a liberation or a type of liberatory practice that we've never seen in this country before, knowing that we might not see it in our lifetime, but we keep the fire burning for ourselves and for the next generation. And that's kind of where I see myself and my work is like an intermediary between, you know, folks on the ground and folks in, the ivory tower.
Thank you Thank you for saying that, Dr. Sierra. I think that, recently you were interviewed during the premiere of It's Deeper Than That, my book, and the documentary. And it was fascinating to hear you speak about what was it like for you to experience the radiance and power of your own livingness, and how did that shift you? And I was wondering if you would talk about that in relationship to how you see your contribution to generational wealth through the intersection of what you're talking about, spirituality and social justice. But will you talk from your own personal experience here?
Yeah, I mean, I think you began to speak to me about radiance,
Mm.
10 or 12 years ago. And at first, I'm like, what is this lady talking about? I have no idea what she means, right? And it took me a while and kind of continued, work with you communally and individually to like understand what you really meant, right? Um, and to be guided by this idea that I am radiant, I am enough, as simple as that is, I think having somebody speak that into you, to internalize it and to live it
Mm.
is a very revolutionary act,
Mm.
right? Especially when we're talking about people of color, other marginalized groups, right? Because for hundreds of years in this country, we've been taught and socialized otherwise, right? And so to think of myself as radiant, to think of myself as enough, to think that I am worthy of rest, right? When
Mm.
my nervous system and body need to rest. Not only is radical, but something that I have to intentionally, practice and might have to for the rest of my life, to disrupt, all of the outside factors that say otherwise,
Mm.
right? And so along this journey, I think as a scholar, I'm also trying to find, the theories that support, these radical ideas, which I have. And I'm also trying to, talk to the women around me who are not in academia, especially the elders, um, to see, what does their radiance look like? Did you ever have a
Mm.
chance or an opportunity in life to exercise or be in your radiance? You know, have you had time to rest? And I realized as I was talking to, mom and aunties and everybody that they really hadn't,
Mm.
right? And
That's
so
heartbreaking.
it's heartbreaking,
Yeah.
right? And so, like, that is a generational pattern that's important for me to disrupt, again, both just as a Black woman and as a scholar. Like, it's important for my children to know that they don't have to earn their rest, right? Or that they will become radiant after they accomplish so many things or do so many things, right? And so I think that philosophy, I think, has helped me just navigate the world, right? So you mentioned statistics earlier. I talked about in the documentary that, it's no accident that Black women are plagued disproportionately by, cardiac disease and high blood pressure, right? This is not just because we eat bad things or have poor habits, but it's legitimately coming from having to navigate white supremacy around us every day, right? And so I think and wholeheartedly think like it is a form of generational wealth, to teach my daughters and my children that, you know, you are radiant, you do deserve rest, you are enough. Um, is a good way to disrupt that, right? And that it is radical and it is revolutionary. And to have that in your body and in your spirit, I think is just as important as me leaving them a house or me leaving them a thing, right? Because things are material, they won't last forever, things break down, right? But to have this, knowing um, that I can turn inward for my liberation, um, I think is the type of generational wealth that I want to pass on.
When you say that, it's awe-inspiring, and I believe it will speak into so many listeners here today. And I'm so grateful, A, that you've taken it on as a social justice act
Yeah.
to interrupt generational trauma, and especially for Black women. And, both you and I know that Black women get dismissed, discredited, demonized, and destroyed over and over again every single day, whether it's as basic as somebody repeating what the Black woman just said. That's
Mhm.
dismissing her knowledge and
Yeah,
leadership. It can be like that basic. It doesn't have to be Ku Klux Klanny, but that
absolutely.
that erosion of dignity for Black women happens all the time, every day. And so for you to say it stops here with me,
Hmm.
I'm going to turn inward and find my own liberation. I'm not going to wait for the world to give it to me, and I'm going to hand it down to my children is very, very, very powerful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for allowing me to share. You did a practice with me during my second pregnancy called, bonding before birth. And I don't know if you want to explain kind of, what that is, but, um, something that you said that always resonates with me too is that, um,
Mm,
we're all just walking each other home. Right. And I keep that in mind with my children, with people that I love and care about. And it just kind of serves as a reminder that, part of my work and my legacy is to kind of impart these, tools um, in my engagements with the people that I really care about because we're all souls just trying to remember and trying to walk each other home, right?
yeah.
And it's a hard walk, right? It's a
Yeah.
hard walk. Um, and so to be, as a mom, right, as a parent, in charge of these souls and wanting them to, remember and to honor those, who came before us and continue to watch over us and guide us. We pay homage to our ancestors by trying to remember to walk each other home with care
Mm,
and love.
mm.
And I'll do that with them. And I hope that they will do that when I am no longer here.
Thank you. I'm just letting all that land for a moment. It's really touching. Mm.
Yeah, it is.
It is. It's actually don't have words right now. I'm very moved. The power of everything you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, I've come a long way since we first met.
Oh
And
my
I'm like,
gosh,
well, what is this
yes.
lady talking about? Sit in your radius?
So was watching you as a young Black woman with this pedagogy way beyond everybody in the organization, like
Yeah.
uh, really demonizing you and trying to destroy you in a way. And I was watching that happen and not on my watch. I was like, this is not okay. Like, sorry, like, y'all can't handle this brilliant Black young woman who knows way more than you do, um, but that was, I always saw that in you. And then I saw you not resting,
Yeah.
right? And to have the convergence of um, your self love and your love for interrupting generational trauma, specifically for Black women, and now the research you're doing about critical spirituality and um, I guess I would say social justice and race and
Absolutely. Yeah.
all of that together. I'm so fascinated. It's like the convergence of everything that you've talked about and everything you're becoming coming together into this research. So would you talk about it?
Obviously, many of your listeners might be familiar with, the movement that is Black Lives Matter, as I am, and as you are, right, and have done, tons of activist and academic work around. But there have been some scholars who have really intrigued me. One being Ruha Benjamin, who wrote a piece
Wait, before
called,
you go on, because our
yeah,
listeners are all over the world, could
yeah.
you maybe say what Black Lives Matter is? Because we can't assume everyone knows if they're in different
Yeah.
countries or.
Yeah. So it's a social justice movement that started here in the United States, particularly during the COVID-19 pandemic, as a response to um, police brutality, policing and racism, white supremacist practices in the criminal justice system. And so, yeah, there were definitely some arms of that movement that reached tons of other countries. And so I'm hoping many of your listeners are familiar with it. But it really was and continues to be an international movement of sorts
Right.
for Black lives, right? For the valuation, the valuing of Black lives. And so there's a scholar who I've been interested in named Ruha Benjamin who talks about Black afterlives mattering. And
Hmm.
since I lost my dad about almost a year ago, I've been really interested in this concept of Black afterlives mattering, right? Um, and it's taken me on a really cool path of like genealogical family research, but thinking about the ways in which our ancestors, those that we know, those that we, don't know, confronted, navigated white supremacy in their lives, perhaps also, in their afterlives in some way. But thinking about how to venerate and honor
Mhm.
them, right? Because they are us on the other side, right? And so they guide us, they lead us, they support us. And so that is,
Hmm.
my area of research interest now. And the critical spiritualities that you spoke of, spot on. I look specifically at religions and spiritualities that came with Black folks from Africa through the transatlantic slave trade here, and how they've kind of shaped and morphed over time. So your voodoo practices, your hoodoo practices, um, all of the things that have sustained us, specifically here in this country for hundreds of years, is what I'm interested in. There's also an intersectional lens, obviously, race, gender. There's lots of class analysis. There's religion and spirituality, obviously. But it's also very much rooted in social justice, right? It's examining systems. It is
Hmm.
working to uh, resist. Um, Instances or experiences of oppression, right? Even if they're small, right? In what ways have Black folks and will Black folks continue to circumvent these systems, right? What are these
Mm,
little acts of resistance that happen on a day-to-day basis, whether that was on a plantation or whether it's now,
right.
right? And so that's what I'm interested in. It's been a really cool experience. There are a lot of practices that have been passed down in my family that we just do. I never really know or knew why we did them. So for example, we eat like black eyed peas on New Year's Eve, right? And
Mhm.
black eyed peas um, signify luck, right? And prosperity. And so that goes all the way back for us spiritually to the diaspora. And so just kind of learning all of these things has been really interesting and I think important to kind of continue to document. So hopefully following the trajectory of, a couple other scholars who have made it their point to think about all the ways in which we resist and will continue to resist, even in the everyday.
I really love everything you just said. And I hope our listeners' curiosity is piqued. And
Yeah.
um, it reminds me of two things. One is on Kristen Tippett, Ruby Sales talks about Black folk religion,
That's it.
and that's a great way to hear about how Black folks resisted and kept their own form of quote church out in the woods. Like
Absolutely.
that's something in and of itself. Or I interviewed Kiana Stewart, who's a therapist, and
Yeah.
she talked about how she went through her partner's death by, instead of doing traditional therapy, creating a circle around her
Hmm.
that she would hold her accountable as she was navigating this grieving process and doing it very in her own way. And that's a form of resistance too, like not doing it. I just think that's
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely beautiful. Um, we unfortunately are going to have to wind down here today.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, I feel like we're going to have you back because there's just too much to unpack and explore here. If people want to get a hold of you or continue this discussion in some kind of way, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
So I have a faculty profile on the Ohio State University website. So if you just go there and type my name in, you can learn a little bit more about my teaching and my research and some contact information if that's
Great.
of interest.
That sounds great. I'm so thrilled for the research you're doing, and I hope it becomes a book.
Yeah, I
Because
agree. It's that time.
it
Yeah.
is that time, because you're the only, I'm not saying you're the only person, because I don't know everybody, but you're the only person I'm hearing saying all this together in one fell swoop. Critical spirituality, social justice, systems, the afterlife, the
Yeah.
small acts of resistance, but you're bringing it all together in one research, I think is
Yes.
absolutely fascinating and liberatory.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that very much.
Woo, feel super excited, super, super excited. And I want to just thank all the listeners for listening in today. I know you will be impacted listening if you've been driving and you have to pause for a minute. I understand, because I was speechless a few times just listening to the wisdom, the power, the curiosity, the hunger for liberation for future generations to come, and the dedication to help synthesize this information to make it available to all of us. Thank you so much, Dr. Sierra. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. And thank you
Absolutely.
to all the listeners out there. It's been an honor and a privilege, and
Oof.
I look forward to coming back soon one day.
Yeah, we'll have you back because this is just scratching the surface. So thank you so much. What do you think the purpose for life is?
I think the purpose of life is to strive for justice and remember that we're all just walking each other home.
Oh, I love that. Thank you. So, once again, this is the Purpose for Life podcast. I'm your host, Suzanne Roberts. I'm the author of It's Deeper Than That. You can find it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. It's a worthy read. And also the founder of The Great Reconnection. So, next week is a Wisdom Wednesday, and then we'll be back again. But thank you all for listening so much, and we'll be back again soon.